WKXWHD, a Town Square media station. From the P.J. Fitzpatrick Home Improvement News Desk, New Jersey's most listened to station, New Jersey 101.5 News starts now.
It's 12 o'clock. I'm Jen Ursulo. Topping our report this hour, flights are now grounded at Newark and JFK airports after a 4.8 magnitude earthquake rocked the eastern seaboard this morning, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. The quake centered in Hunterdon County near Tewksbury, boomed at 10:23 a.m., could be felt up and down the coast, including New Jersey, New York, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. It had a depth of about 3 miles, the survey said. No injuries or damage reported, but many folks say they heard the sounds, felt their houses and buildings shaking, some more intense than others, depending where they were. Governor Murphy taking to X to say the State Emergency Operations Center has been activated. He asks that nobody call 911 unless it's an actual emergency. Also, New Jersey Transit is reporting rail service system-wide is subject to up to 20-minute delays in both directions due to bridge inspections following the quake.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. An unusual, unsettling feeling for New Yorkers.
We were in the building and it shook everything. No one knew what it was.
The U.S. Geological Survey confirms a preliminary magnitude 4.7 earthquake rattled through the metropolitan area. Odyssey's Tom Kaminsky.
This classic, the way an earthquake is described, that was sort of a rumble, but it just kept on building for a little bit. For maybe the first 5 seconds sort of stayed stagnant that way, and then, as I said, it lasted maybe about 10 seconds and then just sort of died off.
It shook the earth as far south as Baltimore, north into the New York City suburbs and Connecticut. The USGS says it was centered 45 miles west of the city in Lebanon, New Jersey. So far, no reports of injuries or damage. Local airports are warning of delays.
And wins at 92.3 FM, New York.
Good morning. 45 degrees in the city, and here's what's happening. As you've been hearing from our Kevin Rincon, yes, that was an earthquake we all felt. A 4.8 magnitude one. It was centered just west of the city in New Jersey, but shook the whole area. There are no initial reports of damage, but Mayor Adams is saying his team is still assessing what impacts it had at this time. Folks in Baltimore, Philadelphia, Connecticut, and other areas of the East Coast also reported feeling the ground shake. Gotten that alert on your smartphone. We finally got that alert saying to everyone that it is a 4.8 magnitude earthquake. That's what we just felt last hour that shook the whole New York City area. Our Glenn Schuck is on this, and he's joining us now live. Glenn.
And just checking with the NYPD as well, just to in terms of damage, we had this wind and rain, right, Linda, in the last couple of days. We're worried about trees coming down, and there's concern that maybe with this rattling that some building facades may have come down. We haven't had any word of that yet, but again, that's some of the immediate concern that the Office of Emergency Management is going to be looking into, based on the weather that we've been having. Now, just looking at some of the other notes I'm getting here, we just heard from the Staten Island Borough President. He says no immediate damage that they're aware of, although one of the city council members from Staten Island, Joe Borelli, was tweeting out that he had some damage at his house. We're going to follow up on that as well. Now, the texts I've been getting, I'm sure you've been getting them into the newsroom, and we're telling our listeners here to take a breath and weigh in with us as to what they endured. But I've heard from folks as far away as Vermont. Heidi up in Albany texted me that they felt it there, and Vermont as well. Lebanon, New Jersey is where this is centered, in Hunterdon County. Now, I also heard from Matt Lugo from Astoria. He was about ready to head out to the Yankee game.
I felt like a big shaking, like my whole house was shaking, and this time I felt like a lot of things were moving and some things fell on my house. And, Yankee opener, I'm trying to go to the game today, and I'm a little bit shocked because I wasn't expecting it, and all my neighbors came outside their houses and their apartments and was just talking about what just happened. Everyone's kind of in a little bit of shock.
So, Linda, by all accounts here, again, this is hundreds of miles in every direction from where this was centered in Lebanon, New Jersey, and again, I'm just getting some additional information here from the NYPD that, again, they're going to put out in cooperation with OEM just to check on the building facade. So you can imagine a city this big, there's going to be a lot to check, but no immediate word of any serious injuries or extensive damage at this point. But for sure, millions of people felt this, Linda.
That's right, Glenn. And of course, as we were saying, they're still assessing the situation. It's so early in the game here that we can't know what really the impacts are yet. Glenn, here in the newsroom, I actually felt the entire studio shake. I had computer monitors shaking and everything happening. How did you feel it?
I was actually in my car, and, we were just talking about this with Kevin Rincon here a moment ago. I believe the last time I was in the newsroom about a decade ago, it felt more like a wave coming through, not the rattling maybe that you experienced. Now, when I was in my car when this happened, it also seemed to feel like a wave where I am in Borough Park here in Brooklyn. They felt tremors, they said, at a school here, and I'm going to hopefully talk to some of the kids that are here. Again, I'm just getting some more information from places like Yonkers. They've put out a public safety alert. They're saying that no structural damage in Westchester at this point. The Rockland County executive just messaging me as well, so we cover all the bases here, saying that he's urging people not to panic. This is from Ed Day, the county executive in Rockland, and that they're assessing the situation too. But again, it looks like, at least hopefully at this point, Linda, it was something that almost everyone felt here, but maybe not extensive damage except for things like maybe plates falling off. My friend Lou just texted me from Hackensack as well. Yeah, this is the great part about radio and 1010 Wins, and everyone's weighing in with us as to their experience. Linda, my friend Lou from Hackensack, saying they're going to take a long lunch here and maybe go have a drink. They're pretty rattled from what just happened here. So I think the message we want to send out, again, preliminary, Linda, it doesn't look like there's anything damage-wise, at least extensively. No injuries that we're hearing of, but that could certainly change, and we're going to stay on top of it and keep making phone calls.
Yeah, I got a text from a friend in the Bronx who summed it up very succinctly. I did not like that feeling of the earthquake shaking the room. That's our Glenn Schuck reporting live. And, of course, we had the Yankees home opener scheduled for today. And our Juliet Papa is in the Bronx. She's right by Yankee Stadium. Juliet, tell us what you felt there.
Actually, Linda, we didn't feel anything here. I was outside speaking with fans. Nothing moved, nothing shook, and believe me, I have been in Yankee Stadium during playoffs and World Series when you literally do feel the building shake, but we didn't get anything. However, I have been hearing from friends of mine, people in Roslyn, Manhasset, Whitestone, and Great Neck, and they have all felt it. A friend of mine in Roslyn said his house shook. He was worried it was coming off the foundation. So that was pretty intense. So right here in the Bronx, it is business as usual. In fact, the Blue Jays are just taking the field now for warm-ups and batting practice. And opening day signs are here up on the scoreboard. And the fans are just beginning to enter the stadium, and nothing happens here. In other parts of the Bronx, as you mentioned, it occurred. But I recall, as Glenn Schuck mentioned, about 10 years ago, I was in Lower Manhattan when that earthquake struck, and that was like an undulating, we were in a news conference with the Manhattan DA. And it was in this sort of fortress of a building, and it felt like the fun house where the floor was undulating. You really actually got a little dizzy feeling that because you were on uneven footing. So I can understand the experience of people that are feeling it. But this section of the Bronx, solid, nothing happens here, and we're assuming this game is going forward. Linda?
We always said Julia Papa was under some kind of lucky star. Is there any suggestion or any indication that the Yankees might be assessing some things or maybe making any tweaks to what might happen today?
You know, we usually there's notifications and they put something out, and we have not seen that as of yet, unless there are some, weird aftershocks that they're anticipating. But right now, I'm looking out on the field business as usual, checking my phone, and we usually look at monitors here for any sort of update, and there is nothing. Perhaps they are discussing it. Even speaking with the fans, nobody felt anything. I mean, they heard about it. They saw the notifications on their phones, but they're all lined up ready to come to the game. So there'll be, some celebration, at least here in this part of the city. Linda?
That's our Julia Papa. She is live at Yankee Stadium. And we're going to go now to Brad Jones from Oceanport, New Jersey. We know that this earthquake centered just west of the city in Lebanon, New Jersey. Brad is in Oceanport, and thanks so much for joining us. Tell us what it felt like to you in the initial moments when the shaking started.
Well, thanks for having me on here. I was actually sitting here just eating some breakfast, and then all of a sudden, as we all say this, all of a sudden, my breakfast bowl is shaking, the chandelier is shaking, my kitchen plates are moving, and I'm like, this is literally going on for about 5 seconds. So, immediately once it stops, I'm like, my wife's in the laundry room. I'm thinking maybe she blew up the washing machine. I walk outside looking for neighbors going, what the heck just happened? It was a very strange feeling.
Did you, sorry, go ahead.
So I'm thinking maybe it's just my house.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people had the sensation that maybe it was like some kind of construction going on or some kind of jackhammering. Exactly.
That's exactly right, because there's construction near my house. I looked outside, and then my wife comes running down the stairs. What the heck was that, Brad? So you literally get a little shook up from being shook up.
For sure. When you stepped outside of your home and you just sort of took a look around or went to see if neighbors were out, did you notice anything in the ways of like anything falling, any kind of like small damage?
No, not on this side, but I did see a few neighbors step outside yelling, what happened? What was that?
And in your own home, no notice of any damage or anything breaking or falling?
No damage. I think like most people, you look around your own house to make sure nothing happened. But nothing happened, but it is a very strange sensation, and we don't get these here, so...
Yeah,
kind of scary in a way, I got to tell you.
Fairly often. That's what most people that we're talking to, our 1010 Wins listeners, are reporting, that really it's an unsettling feeling when you first start realizing
it's an unsettling feeling. We can't imagine it being in a higher number earthquake. As 4.7 or 8 was frightening.
Have you gotten any notifications? We've seen some iPhones just ringing with some warnings. Anything from the town or anything from there locally in New Jersey letting you know about what conditions are? What
nothing in my. I'm in Monmouth County, so nothing came in real quick. My daughter works for the state police, and she got me a quick message that something just happened.
And you were home with family in the house at the time, or alone? You said you weren't alone.
Me and my wife, and then that's when everything just started rattling and then we both kind of yelled at each other. What the hell just happened?
We're here in the city, and you're just outside of the city, actually a little closer to the epicenter there. Were you hearing from other folks who got in touch with you who were further away, who mentioned that they might have felt that?
I have a friend up in, actually one of my friends is in the Lebanon area, and I just texted him. And, but yeah, I haven't felt any, I haven't seen any text messages from anyone else further away, but it's certainly, it's like you said, it's been felt by many, many people, so this is an experience for us.
I'm sorry, and did you say you heard from your friend in the Lebanon area who had felt that?
I haven't heard back. I texted him because he lives in Lebanon, so I'm waiting to hear from him. But like I said, for all of us, it's kind of unsettling. But it's something we all can all experience together and talk about.
We will be talking about this. That's Brad Jones from Oceanport, New Jersey. Thank you so much, Brad, for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much.
And we're actually hearing from a listener in Deer Park now, in Deer Park, Long Island. This is Joni Jones. Thanks so much for joining us, Joni.
Thank you for having me.
So the epicenter was west of the sea, all the way in New Jersey. You're in Deer Park. Tell us what you felt in your area.
I was actually in my car getting ready to go into CBS, so I was in the parking lot. And my entire car just started shaking. It was honestly almost rocking. I thought that I started looking around at the trees. I was like, okay, Mr. Wind, stop rocking my car. But the trees weren't moving. So then I started to look at the windows of the stores behind me, and they were actually shaking.
Oh, wow. Did you get out of the car at all, and did you try to go into the building, into the CVS?
No, I waited because I was trying to figure out what was going on. I thought there was something going on with my truck, but I just waited, and then it stopped after a few seconds.
Did you try to drive right after that?
No. I went into the store, and they were the managers in the store were talking about it.
What did you notice in the store? Was there any kind of impact from the shaking or from the earthquake? Did they have items falling or any kind of damage?
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that of that magnitude. Nothing was displaced or anything.
How did you feel? Did you feel nervous about even getting out of the car, going into a building, or what might be happening?
I didn't feel nervous because once it stopped, I was okay, because this is actually the second time that it's happened in Suffolk County. It happened about 15 years ago. So I wasn't too nervous about it. Once it stopped, I was okay.
Do you recall from having experienced the last time, thinking that you might know exactly what was going on, just not being sure?
I don't think I thought of it at first, not until one of the managers in the store said something about what it was. So once she said that, did you feel that? Did you feel something? I said, is that what that was, an earthquake? Because I definitely felt it.
That is Joni, who is joining us from Deer Park. Joni, thank you so much for telling us your experience.
You're very welcome. Thank you again for having me.
And we're going to go now to Sarah from New Jersey. We know the epicenter of this earthquake was in Lebanon, New Jersey. Sarah, I understand you were on a horse when this happened?
Yeah, so I was about 10 minutes drive from the epicenter in Califon on my horse in an indoor riding arena. And let me tell you, there are many unsafe places to be during an earthquake, and I think that being on a horse is number one among them, because you cannot tell a horse what's going on. We didn't know what was going on, and he just took off at a gallop. There were actually two other horses in the arena, and they started careening around like a merry-go-round. We were helpless to stop them. It was probably a top 3 lifetime frightening moment for me.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine. And so when you are on the horse, first of all, we're glad you're okay. When you are on the horse, how did you get to the point where you were able to slow it down, or just was he moving the entire time the ground was shaking?
Yeah, they were all galloping around, in a panic. They're flight creatures, so when there's something they don't understand, they flee. I've been riding 38 years, so I put all that to use to haul back and calm him down. But it was certainly startling. We initially thought the boom was so tremendous. We were in an indoor arena which shook. We thought it was coming down on top of us. And then we theorized it was maybe a fighter jet doing an exercise, or maybe Donald Trump's golf course is near there. We thought maybe it was some sort of Air Force One landing.
Sure, maybe people thought it was construction or some kind of construction explosion. We're getting a lot of those reactions from people around the area as well.
Yeah, just to illustrate the level of the noise. And unfortunately, people, you can tell them actually calm down. It's an earthquake. You can check the news, but you can't tell that to a horse. So it was a lot of good boy, and you'll get lots of carrots later. Sorry this happened to you.
And you mentioned you were indoors. Did you see anything that amounted to, anything falling or any type of damage, any people having to, dodge to be safe or go to other areas?
No, and now I'm driving around the area, and sort of miraculously, for the level of the tremor, it seems like there isn't a lot of damage beyond pictures falling off the wall, that kind of stuff. But no, it doesn't seem, from my vantage point in this neighborhood, which is very close to the epicenter, there was much physical damage. The emotional damage to my horse, we'll see.
Oh, that I'm sure of. Did you hear from folks who are farther away from you in different areas who said that they felt the shaking, like in a really significant way, and how far away?
Yeah, I'm from New York City. I come out here to be with my horses, and everybody's been texting me. My building shook, my glass fell off the table, that kind of stuff, all the way back in Manhattan. And I told them, well, you think you had it rough. I was on a galloping horse out of its mind.
And was everyone in the arena and in the area with you okay?
Yes, miraculously, everybody calmed their horses down, gave them lots of lumps of sugar after, and we're all just fine.
What was the initial feeling like for you?
I'm still sort of shaking. I think the earthquake was magnified by the earthquake of a Dutch warm blood horse that I was sitting on. So I still have a stomach ache about it, but it's nice to know that I think we're in the clear with just a few aftershocks.
And are you thinking back to when have you experienced this before? We were talking to the listener right before you who was actually out on Deer Park, Long Island, who remembers just about 2 decades ago when this happened before. Did you have a memory of that one that sort of contributed to this one?
No, absolutely not. There's a reason I don't live in California, because this is terrifying, and I have not experienced it in memory in New York, and it's certainly not one I'll forget, being, as I was, on a galloping wild animal for a few minutes.
Well, Sarah in New Jersey, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you offering your perspective, and we're glad everyone's okay and the horses are okay.
Yeah, we're all doing well. Thank you so much for your great coverage.
And we'll just update you right now. Again, it was a 4.8 magnitude earthquake that hit just west of New York City, centered in Lebanon, New Jersey. Of course, we're getting statements in from various local officials. New York City's Mayor Adams, putting out a statement saying that the mayor's team is looking into the impacts across the city at the time, though it appears to not have had major impact, but we can't say that yet. They are still assessing. And Mayor put out a reminder that in the case of an aftershock, drop to the floor, cover your head and neck. This is the good advice that you should follow. Take additional cover under a solid piece of furniture, next to a wall, or in a doorway. This is a 4.8 magnitude earthquake, but there is definitely the strong possibility that we will have aftershocks that will come in Jersey or be felt through the city area. And we know that we're getting additional information into the newsroom right now. There is a ground stop now at our local airports, a ground stop at Newark and JFK. That's until 11:30. This is just under an hour ago just about an hour ago that the earthquake was first felt. So until 11:30, just about another 10 minutes, they'll have a ground stop at JFK. And Philly and Baltimore had ground stop also, but that has now been removed. And we're also learning that people as far away as Philadelphia, Baltimore, even up in Connecticut, felt the impacts of this quake. And we're going to go now to correspondent Sherry Preston. She is in Glen Ridge, New Jersey, and she joins us now live. Sherry, good to talk to you, even under these circumstances. Tell us what you felt when the earthquake first started shaking everything.
And good to talk to you, Linda. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you great, yes.
Okay, great. What was going on in New Jersey is I was working from home today, and I was doing two-ways actually on the cicadas that are coming out later this spring, and suddenly you could just feel it. I'm in my basement, a little studio in my basement. You could just feel it rocking, and there's a lot of trees in this part of Essex County, and we've had them fall before, so I know what that sounds like. And it was like that, but it just kept going. It just kept going and going, and I went upstairs and I asked my husband, I said, hey, he goes, I think we just had an earthquake. And we used to live for a long time in Carbondale, Illinois, along the New Madrid Fault, which is, due for a really big earthquake at this point. And we have felt small earthquakes along there, but have never felt one out here in this area. And all I could think of was being in New York City if this was happening. I just happened to be home in Jersey today, and it was quite something. So they're checking out the Holland Tunnel, as you mentioned, Linda. They've got the ground stops going at some of the airports. Mayor Adams is going to talk in about half an hour at noon. There was word that the fire department was being dispatched to Long Valley, New Jersey, for multiple structures with reports of some damage, but we haven't confirmed that yet. And, like we know, the epicenter in Whitehall Station, New Jersey, middle part of the state, is about 30 miles from where I am, a little bit further from you if you guys are in New Jersey, in New York, but you certainly felt it, and, it seems like things are calming down now, but it was really something you're just not used to experiencing out here in the Northeast.
And you mentioned you were working from home today. What did you see? Was there anything that even amounted to damage or anything concerning that happened just right in your home or your area?
No, Linda. It was just felt like rumbling. We do have a Mexican statue that my husband was out in the other room, and he said it was made of tin, and he's like, I could feel it shaking as a big truck was going by. It almost sounded like a storm was going by as well. I don't know if that would have been enough to wake somebody up if they were sleeping, but I do know on the U.S. Geological Survey they have a little questionnaire that says if you felt this, go ahead and answer a few questions. And some of the things they're asking is, what did you do? Did you drop to the ground? Were you inside? Were you outside? Did it wake you up? And all those questions they want people to know because they're timing it. But it's really funny because the first thing I did is I emailed the desk at ABC News and I asked Otan, who's the editor there on Today, and I said, well, boy, did you guys feel something? And then he said, yeah, we all felt it here too. And then the next thing you know how these things happen. Everybody has to reply all You know, so you've got 450 people on an email chain, and everybody going, I'm in Yonkers, I felt it. I'm in Montclair, I felt it. You know, it's like, we get it. We all felt it. But now it's very comforting to know that it wasn't that big, and we're going to be assessing the damage to see just how much is out there.
That's our Sherry Preston reporting from New Jersey. Sherry, thank you for all that valuable information. As Sherry mentioned, Mayor Adams is going to be giving a briefing right around noon. We will carry that live. Shortly after that, Governor Hochul will be giving a briefing, which we will bring to you as well. Let's go back now to our Glenn Schuck, who is in Brooklyn. Glenn.
Yeah, my phone's been ringing off the hook, as I'm sure the newsrooms has as well. I just spoke with Mindy. Imagine this, and I recorded some sound that I'll share in a couple of minutes, but she was in a 7th-floor apartment in Bay Ridge. She said when the dishes started falling off the shelves in her apartment. Now, imagine that, 7 floors up in an apartment in Bay Ridge. She said her first instinct wasn't to take cover. She made a run for it, running down the stairs out into the street and into her car, which I said, I'm not sure if that was exactly the safest place based on what was happening. But again, she's okay. This is the kind of stories we're hearing. People really shaken up, not experiencing anything, at least to this extent before. Obviously, Linda, we've had earthquakes before in our area. Matter of fact, I was going to mention, I was out in California in '94 for the Northridge quake out there. I was actually up by Monterey earlier in my radio career, my young career, when I think that was a 6.7. I remember that being longer. This, where I was today, seemed like it was stronger but shorter, if that makes any sense. It was more not of that wave-type feeling. It was a really strong rumbling and shaking, and it really was pretty frightening just by the calls that we're getting in. We mentioned earlier, and we'll hear more from the mayor, I'm sure, that the city is going to check a lot of the building facades. So many of the buildings here are so old in a lot of the boroughs, all 5 boroughs really, so they're going to have to really carefully check all these building facades, especially after the storm we had, to make sure even the smallest crack obviously could lead to bigger issues. So, again, there's going to be a lot of inspection to do. We'll hear a lot of what the city has planned. Of course, as you mentioned, the mayor's going to talk. We're going to hear from Governor Hochul. The governor is in Albany, where they felt it. We've had calls from Vermont. We've had calls from Maryland, Long Island, etc. Everyone seemed to feel this in one way or another, Linda.
And I actually spent a fair amount of time in L.A. myself and have been there for some minor earthquakes like this one. But I think, Glenn, I would agree with you that for a 4.8, it felt shorter but definitely more intense.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I remember back to the Northridge one. I felt it was, like I said, it was almost like riding a surfboard. And I remember the hotel I was in had wooden shutters, and they kind of shook as well. 3 different people that I spoke to on the phone have called me, and again, that's the good news about radio, I guess, too, and our listeners are so dedicated to us. They've all been reaching out to me and to you, I'm sure, and all in the newsroom, wanting information and sharing pretty much the same story again. Intense rattling that seemed very frightening. They went out into the street, people sharing stories of things that definitely did fall off the shelves within their houses. It doesn't appear to be any extensive damage, but again, that's going to take a long time to find out. I found it pretty interesting, too, that school kids here in Brooklyn that I saw running down the street seemed to be completely happy anyway, couldn't have cared less that this had happened. So that's always a good thing, too, to see that everyone seems to be fine, Linda.
Yeah, that carefree youth. That's our Glenn Schuck reporting live from Brooklyn. And we're going to go now to 1010 Wins listener Grace Pena in East Rutherford. As we know, this earthquake was centered west of the city in New Jersey. Grace, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us what you felt when it first hit.
Hi, thank you for having me. I was actually in the middle of class. I was in an exam, and we all felt it. We all looked at each other, my classmates, my professor. We were all very confused. We thought it was the construction outside. It was definitely very powerful, but it was really short. Immediately after, my professor sent us down to the basement, and she dismissed us from class.
What school do you go to?
Felician University.
Did you notice that there was anything that looked to be like there might be damage, or that there was anything that happened as a result of the earthquake there?
There was definitely no damage. The school sent out texts to everybody saying, there's no reported damage so far, but that they'll keep us updated. My roommate, actually, I texted her right after. She was asleep, and the earthquake woke her up from sleeping.
That's Grace Pena, who's joining us from East Rutherford, New Jersey, where they felt the earthquake at Felician University. Grace, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we are expecting briefings from both Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams to be coming up shortly. We'll continue our live coverage now and send it over to Kevin Rincon. Kevin.
Linda. Good afternoon. I am Kevin Rincon, and we have continuing coverage of the earthquake felt here in the city and beyond. Some early figures, 42 million people plus felt it. So even though it's, this sort of stuff happens on the West Coast, it is not normal here. It does happen from time to time. This was a 4.8 magnitude earthquake centered in White House Station, New Jersey. That is central Jersey, not far from Bridgewater. We're expecting to hear from Governor Kathy Hochul in the coming minutes here. Mayor Adams set to offer an update at around noon. We can tell you we've been reaching out to folks to see if there have been any reports of damage, and so far not seeing any reports of damage, which is a positive. NYPD Transit says no specific damage. FDNY, similarly, no damage to report. NJ Transit has been doing inspections at bridges. That's been delaying some service. Airports have had ground stops, notably JFK and Newark. Some of those have been lifted now after they got a chance to inspect the runways. In 2011, you might remember, we did see an earthquake down in Virginia. That was a 5.8. This one similar, but a lot closer to home. It is 11:31. Take a check of traffic and transit with Karen Stewart.
Newark Airport confirming a ground stop as of 11:05 this morning. We are checking on the other two major metropolitan airports to find out about possible ground stoppages there. We've got mass transit issues, as Kevin touched upon. Rail service on NJT is subject to 20-minute delays both ways due to bridge inspections following the earthquake. Newark light rail service is suspended system-wide due to track inspections and the threat of seismic activity following the earthquake. And the River Line light rail service is suspended on NJT both ways between the Waterfront Entertainment Center and Trenton due to track inspections going on there. No word on any of subway problems going on with relationship to this earthquake. Keep it locked to 1010 Winds. Traffic and transit every 10 minutes around the clock, and we'll keep you updated. And I just wanted to update you on this Yankee home opener against the Blue Jays with the game starting at 1:05. We have very heavy traffic on the Deegan right now, southbound from the Mosholu Parkway all the way down to Yankee Stadium. The McCombs Dam Bridge is like stopped across the span, and 161st Street is really very busy from Morris Avenue now out into the stadium. Keep it locked to 1010 Winds for traffic and transit surrounding the Yanks home opener right here on 1010 Winds. Traffic and transit every 10 minutes around the clock.